Happy Thursday, everybody. I pray all is well. My name is Michael Gibson, and I'm on my favorite topic of why I go to church. I'm calling this the process, and it's better over here. I thought it was important for me just to speak on this subject because last week I spoke about all that glitters isn't gold. So I don't want you to think that because all that glitters isn't gold, that serving God isn't worth it, or pursuing more knowledge about your Creator isn't worth it. It's well worth it. And thank you for joining in, Kathy and Eric. I strongly believe that God, in His Word, through the people that are gifted to speak on the things of God, they can really weave a nice narrative for you to understand that there's levels to this thing. There's levels. There's a process to this thing. But walking with God, it will make you understand or help you have a better understanding of the process. See, a lot of us want to be great. We want to have many things in our life, but we don't want to go through the steps that it takes to become great. Nothing is built overnight. Nothing. Absolutely nothing is built overnight. You have to put in some work. You're going to have to do some things behind closed doors. You're going to have to do some things when other folks are asleep. You're going to have to deny yourself. And when I read the Word, when I dive in the Word, God reminds me that what has been done in secret, He will reward you openly. I'm not working behind the scenes with my door closed because I want to be rewarded. It's just that that's part of the process, and that's part of God's plan. And when you study this Word, when you read this Word, many people were given a word that was spoken over their life that it took a while to come to pass. We can read through the Bible and we can go to the father of faith, Abraham, whose name was Abram. He was given a promise, and that promise took 25 years to come to pass. But it's understanding that process. I stick in Genesis a lot just because I just love it. It's hard to get away from that book, but that book will explain a lot to you. So Abram, he was told to get out of the land. He was told to get out of the land that he was in. But before he ever got out of that land, God told him to look at the stars and see if he could actually number them, and look at the sand, see if he actually could count that. And that's how big his blessing was going to be. But in order for him to receive that blessing, he had to be willing to give up what was natural to him. He had to be willing to give up what was normal to him. He had to be willing to be uncomfortable. He had to be willing to be led without knowing the final destination. Many of us are afraid to be led without knowing all the details. But if God told you all the details that was going to be happening in your life, most of us would never sojourn on that trip. We would not partake in that trip because sometimes the details are messy. Sometimes the process, there are things that you just won't understand. There are things that you would just say, God, I don't want to go through that. There are seasons and stages in our life that we will say, nah, I'm not doing that. Nah. So you want to be famous, but you don't want to be refined. You don't want to be pruned. You don't want to be broken. You don't want to be planted. You don't want to be rained on. You don't want to go through any storms in your life. I want to tell you that you can't be great in this world without going through that process. There is a process. And when I read the Word, when I dive into the scriptures, God just keeps reminding me. So all those many hours that I've prayed, all those many hours that I have fasted, all those many times that I have studied, this is what you see before you. I'm not an overnight success. I didn't get to be like this just because I woke up one day and said I wanted to be like this. I had to stand and sit under many ministries, many people, bishops, elders, deacons, Thursday night teachings and Wednesday night Bible studies and revivals and conferences. I had to sit and serve all these many people in order to get where I am today. but that is part of the process. And God reminds me that all the time, that everything is a process. It's like the iceberg. You only see the tip. You don't see what's all underneath the tip of that iceberg. You don't understand the foundation that has been laid. And if you want to build any building, you never start with the roof first. If you want to build a building, you start with the bottom. You start with the foundation. And when I read the word says that Christ is the cornerstone, but he also says a prophet is without honor in his own land. So just like Abram had to get out where he was comfortable, just like Abram had to pack up all his belongings and move on, some of us, you're going to have to do that. Some of you are going to have to do that. So you want to be successful, but you want to carry all the things that you had in your past into your future. That's not going to work, because your future is not the same place. See, we sing this song, "Enlarge my territory, Lord." Well, if God is enlarging your territory, sometimes when he renovates your house, it requires new furniture. I watch these shows Flip and Flop. I watch these shows Love It or List It. And when their house gets renovated, they wreck. I mean, the last show I watched, they brought in a huge crane and they ripped off the back of that house and they tore everything that was inside of that house down and started from the ground up. They put in new framing. They put in new flooring. They put in new drywall. They put a fresh coat of paint. They built new doorways. They brought in new furniture. They brought in new refrigerators. They brought in new appliances. They ran a new electrical wires. I mean, they did a whole new thing. What was left was just the shell, but inside everything was new. So my question is, are you willing to endure the process? Are you willing to be in the closet with God and allow God to go in there and say, guess what? This suitcase of bitterness can't go into your future. This suitcase of unforgiveness doesn't belong in your future. This little brown bag that you don't have a label on, that has shame, that can't walk into your future. That little bag that you had of insecurity, that can't go in your future. You're going to have to leave the old you to embrace the new you. You are going to have to leave the old you to embrace the new you. That's why when you drive a car, the front window is always bigger than the rear window. That's why. And you want to be great. You want God to enlarge your territory, but you don't want to do anything different. To get something you never had, you have to do something you've never done. Abram had to go into a land that he never seen before. And see, when you go into a land that you've never seen before, that means you got to keep your ear tuned to God. That means you got to stay in a position where you're praying, where you're reading, when you're fasting, when you're listening. You got to stay in a place where you can hear from God. Hey, Venus, because you can never hear from God being around all the other noise. You gotta minimize your distractions. You gotta get rid of things that are interfering with your signal. But see, Abram left. And when Abram left, right, it was uncomfortable because it wasn't his home. It wasn't what he was accustomed to. You've never been where God is taking you. You've never been where God is taking you. We always want to sing these songs. Eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man the things that God keeps and makes ready for us. Well, what he keeps and makes ready for us, what you haven't seen isn't your homeland. You haven't been where God is taking you. If you wanted something great, you have to be willing to go through the process. And the process can't be undertaken by someone else. It's your process. So you're going to have to go through those lonely nights. You're going to have to go through those nights where, God, are you really there? You're gonna have to go through those times where you're going to say, your word said that you'll never leave me nor forsake me, but I don't feel comfortable right now. You're going to have to know that you know that you know. Because when you read the word declares that your way will be prosperous and you will have good success. So you got to tell your enemies, you got to tell your haters, you got to tell those people that are on the sideline, You're liars. I'm not listening to you. I'm going to receive what the Father says that I can receive, and I'm going to have what the Father says I can have. So when God gets in your closet, are you going to allow him to throw away that insecurity? Are you going to allow him to throw away the words of your parents saying that you would never be great? Are you going to allow him to trash can the limitations and the poverty mindsets and everything else that you put on yourself because your family was never great? Your mama was never great. Your daddy was never great. Well, guess what? They don't get to choose your destiny. God gets to choose your destiny. God gets to choose where you're going. God gets to choose how high you can go. They can't limit you. The only thing that can limit you is you. I want to encourage you to get in your word, read your word, hey, Altavis, and get into this thing for yourself, because there is nothing limiting you but your creativity and your imagination. And guess what's the most beautiful thing about your story? The most beautiful thing about your story, God says that he is the author and finisher of your faith. He is the author and the finisher of your faith. He is the author and the finisher of your faith. What does that mean? He is the writer and he is the public. He's the one that is actually publishing your story. He's publishing your story. He's writing your story. He's correcting your story. He's narrating your story. He created the table of contents for your story. He created the foreword for your story. He created the introduction for your story. And guess what? He created the conclusion of your story. What's that mean? Your story was already written before you came through that birth canal. So guess what? You're a winner. If you're listening to me now or later, you're a winner. Thank you. Because your story has already been written. He's the author and the finisher. And guess what? Just in case you didn't understand what that means, he says, I've given every man a measure of faith. He already gave it to you. So the things that you need to complete your story so that you can actually live to read to the end of your story, he gave to you. He already gave to you. Yes, Venus, we are a winner. I win because he says, I said I could win. He said that I can be above only and never beneath. He says that I can be the lender and not the borrower. So many people keep saying, guess what? You can't have this and you can't do that. You can do whatever you put your mind to, because God is the author and he's the finisher and he's the illustrator and he's the architect and he's the publisher and he's the publicist. He is the one that can put you in front of anybody. He is the one that can put you in front of any single person that you need to be put in front of. But the word declares, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and in due time, in due season, you will reap. In due season. The process is that season. We are more than a conqueror. So here's the question. Are you a half-baked cookie? Or are you a full-baked cookie? That is the question. Because I love cookies. And I like smelling the cookies because they smell so good. But you know what it is when you open up that oven and you look at that cookie, but it's not that golden brown chocolate chip cookie. And it's a little bit soft. God is not going to allow you out of the oven before your due season, because you never come to the king empty-handed. You always have something to give. This has never come before the king empty-handed. Guess what you got to give to the kings? Guess what you got to give to the nations? Guess what you got to give to the world? Guess what you got to give to the Congress and the senators and the presidents and all the other places that God has taken us? Guess what you got to give to your world? It's your voice. It's your gift. It's whatever God gave you to give. Give it. Give it your all, your due season. You will reap if you faint not in this due season. So stop running from the process. I shared this last week. God is not preparing the blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. That preparation time is called the process. You got to let your process go, because God, you don't want to have baked cookie as your gift. I love cookies. You don't want it to be half done. So I was a part of something this weekend that was so phenomenal, and it goes on every single day for this month. It was called the World Voice League Summit. Guess what? That was somebody's gift to the world. That was put in somebody's mind, eye, and we're walking in their heart, and we're a part of this program, but because of it, she put her gift. She put her gift. She put her creativity. She put her process, and she's bringing in speakers from 5, 6, 7 continents. I don't know anybody in Antarctica, but if it's meant, somebody from Antarctica will come in. What I'm telling you, present your gifts to the world. God does the complete work, no patchwork. See, God does the complete work, but what happens is we want to leave before the process is done. And see, when you read the word, I'm reminded of the story when the young man said, "Dad, I don't see a sacrifice." But if you read that story closely, he said that God was going to provide for him before God ever provided for him. Sometimes you got to see it before you see it. Sometimes you got to see it before you see it. Sometimes you got to shout before you have it. Sometimes you got to dance before you get it. Sometimes you got to declare before you know it, because you got to know inside your heart that you know it. Amen. Sometimes you got to do it afraid, because walking with God can be scary sometimes, because God will cause you to do something that no one else has ever done. You might be designed to be building an ark, but it hasn't rained for many, 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 many years. But when it rains, people will be running to get into that ark. Stop looking to be perfect. Just be obedient. Stop looking to be perfect. Just be obedient. When God says move, you got to move, and don't turn your hand back. Don't be like Lot's wife. See, here's the sadness of Lot's wife. See, many times we read that story and we say Lot's wife got turned into a pillar of salt. That's not the sadness of Lot's wife. The sadness of Lot's wife is that Lot's wife never got to move forward. She was stuck. She was an unfinished process. She was unfinished. She was unbaked. She was not complete. Sometimes we don't have the things that we want in our life. It's not because God is not doing the complete work in us. It's because we turn back. We turn back and we negate our future because of the words that we speak, because of the circles that we run into, because we keep hanging out with people that have our problems and not our solutions. The real travesty of Lot's wife wasn't that she got stuck in the same spot as a pillar of salt. It's because she never got to see the true manifestation of what God called her to be. God wanted her to be blessed just like Abram. God had connected her in a community where she could have been rich and living large. She could have had a blessed life. She could have had the abundant life. But she was so afraid to leave what was common to her. Her family that was in the building. Her family that was in the village. Her daughter and her son that was in the village. She was afraid to leave her family. Sometimes to be great, you got to leave people behind. You got to leave some people behind. Some people don't want to go where God is calling you. Some people are not designed to be in the position that God is positioning you for. I want to tell you, it's much better on this side, because every tear I cried, God saw them. And every prayer I prayed, God will answer, because I serve a prayer answering God. He's not forgotten anything, because guess what? He's the author and the illustrator of this story and the publisher of this story. So just because it's unfamiliar, you keep sticking with it, because God is going to do a new thing. But in order to do a new thing, you got to be willing to go in uncharted territories. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable. You got to be willing to be stretched. You got to be willing to be flexible. You got to be willing to do what other people are unwilling to do. Where God guides, he will always make a way. So God is really not making ways out of no way. God is making ways out of the ways he's already made for you. He's already completed your story. But will you be like Lot's wife and turn back and not to get to see the end of the story? That is the question. So your adversary, your enemy, your naysayers, he doesn't know the story. But what he will do is say that God has forgotten about you. God doesn't care about you. God has imprisoned you. God has allowed people to lie on you. Guess what? If Potiphar's wife would have never lied on Joseph, Joseph wouldn't have been seen as a man of integrity. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would have never been thrown in the fire. People would have never knew that there was a fourth man in the fiery furnace. They would have never knew that God was a healer, that God was a deliverer, that God was a waymaker, that God was a sustainer, and that God was a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Stop running from the process. Stop running from the process. God prepared the oven for them. God shut the lion's mouth. Daniel didn't shut the lion's mouth. All Daniel did was keep obeying. And when you read that passage, see, this is why you got to read the word, because in that passage, he said, I heard you the first time. I heard you the first time you prayed. But the enemy, he withheld me for 21 days. If you're listening to me, God heard you the first time. God has not forgotten about you. God has not slacked on his promises, but you got to do your part. God gave me this revelation that we call those things that be not as though they were. What does that really mean? There's two realms, and here's a plane. Here's my hand. Hope you can see my hand, right? Above my hand is the unseen realm, and below my hand is the seen realm. What you got to do is get your faith to pull that business down out of the unseen realm into the seen realm. What you got to do is get your faith to pull that career down out of the unseen realm into the seen realm. What you got to do is get your faith to pull that house out of the unseen realm into the seen realm. Because God said he's already made it. But the question is, do you have the faith to pull it down? So if you're on this line, I want you to say, I have the faith to pull it down. Pull it down. Pull it down. Pull it down. Because God is giving you that faith to pull it down. But what you got to do is work your faith. You got to be in a position where you can hear faith. You got to see people walking in faith. You got to be around people that are using faith. You can't be hanging around with people that don't have no faith. Now, God has given every man a measure of faith. But because of their environment, because of their belief systems, they don't know how to exercise and use their faith. So that's why I hang around with people that got faith. So God got mansions up there for me, literally mansions, because I seen them in my mind's eyes. God got community centers up there for me because I seen them in my mind's eyes. God has schools up there for me. I seen them in my mind's eye. So what I got to do is work my faith. And sometimes when you lack in faith, see, when you read the word, when you really read the word, one of his disciples said, God, help thou my unbelief. He said, increase my faith. So there is nothing wrong with saying to your heavenly Father, God, increase my faith. There is nothing wrong with saying, God, I'm afraid. But what you got to do is like what Jesus did. Jesus said, it's not my will, but thy will be done. There's a process, and you have to go through the process. And when you go through the process, you got to realize is that it's not your will, but it is God's will that will be done in your life. Because it's for his glory. It will always be about his glory. It will always be about the kingdom. And if you put the kingdom first, everything else will be added unto you. It says, seek ye first. Seek ye first the kingdom. Then all shall be added unto us. See, if you seek all before the kingdom, you can lose all. If you see all out of context, all can fail you. But God will never fail you. He will never leave you. The question is, are you getting out the oven before you're done? Are you unwilling to go through the process? I want to encourage you to go through the process. No matter how hot the oven gets, it won't kill you. It'll just make you stronger. It won't kill you. The hardest part, I feel like I have Conrad is not ready, but I'm waiting for him. But sometimes You have to grab the bull by the horns and say, world, ready or not, here I come. Ready or not, here I come. And that's where I'm getting now in my life. That ready or not, here I come. You don't have to believe in me because I believe in me. And that's where you know that you know that you know. You don't have to want the things that I want. But because God has placed you in my life, the blessings will fall down on other people. You don't have to understand it. Just stand next to me and watch God do it. There's nothing my God cannot do. But there's not much can be done when you break the process. So I want to encourage you to hang in there and hold on, because you will reap in due season if you faint not. Faint not. My name is Michael Gibson, and this is why I go to church. If this message has blessed you, I encourage you to share it out. And if you watch this video live or via replay, hold on. Hold on. Don't give up. I love you, and God loves you too. And I encourage you all to find a place where your soul can be fed. And if you don't have a church home, I encourage you to spend your own time with the Master. There's so many things that the architect of your story has written, but you got to have the faith to pull it down, to see it in your life. Thank you for your time, and stay blessed. Love you too, Aunt Baby Sis. I love you too. And guess what? God has good things for you too. But you got to hold on. But at some point, Aunt Baby Sis, you got to start walking it out for yourself. You got to start speaking it out for yourself. You got to start speaking the words that God has placed in your heart for you to see those things manifested in your life. Because the more you speak it, the more you believe it. The more you believe it, the sooner you will act upon it. And when you begin acting upon it, the quicker you'll see God doing it for you. He will bring people alongside of you to give you the desire of your heart, to see it come to fruition. But it always starts with an act of obedience by everybody. God is not coming down and doing the work for you. So this word works if you work it. Have a blessed day.